Hi everyone, welcome back to this next session. At the moment, we have a lightning session with Matt Dragon from Mate, the founder and CEO of Mate. Matt has been an executive coach to over 100 leaders and has 20 years experience in transformation. And he's also part of the 2024 KPMG Future Tech Program cohort for his program and software product Mate. So I'm going to hand over to Matt because it's a lightning session. Matt, welcome and thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Fatima. Really excited here, and thank you everyone for giving up your time to join this session. I'm not going to spend any time introducing myself as such, because Fatima's done a great job of that. Given it's a lightning session, I want to dive straight into what we're going to cover and hopefully give you some insight in terms of what I'd like you to walk away with today. So essentially, what I'd really love for everyone in the audience to walk away with today is a clear understanding of how they can get their change management resources to add greater value to their projects and to contribute to benefit realization. I know from my experience working in projects and supporting PMO officers that there's often some friction between change managers or change resources and project management officers, and there's some confusion about essentially the roles and the value that change managers can bring to the table. So today, I'm hoping that by the end of the session, you walk away with clarity on how to engage your change management resources to get the maximum value out of those resources based on their skill sets. So how do you really unleash their talent to deliver the maximum benefit realization for your organization? So to kick off, I'm going to start with going through the current challenge faced by organizations in relation to benefit realization. What we know is for most organizations, they find it really, really challenging to actually sustain their goals over a longer period of time. So the second statistic you can see on screen is actually a research study undertaken by McKinsey, and that's self-reporting from over 150 organizations who said that basically they only felt, or 12% of those organizations self-reported and said that they only felt that they sustained their goals after 3 years. That's a really, really low percentage. The other thing that we know from our experience is that basically leadership and active leadership support is really critical to change success and to benefit realization and transformation program success. So before we go into a case study, I just want to dig in and help share a little bit more of an understanding of the problem or the challenge that most organizations face. Everyone on the call, being project management professionals, will be very familiar with the typical project management life cycle, whether you're delivering in an agile manner using sprints and then having basically product release on time, or whether you're delivering in a waterfall manner. Basically, the life cycle will look pretty similar, where you start at the business case, you've got an investment decision, you kick off a project, the project team delivers a solution into the business, and there's change management support that goes adjacent with that, typically to the point of go live and a little bit beyond into hypercare. What we know from the research and our experience is the majority of financial benefit is actually lost during the implementation and sustain phases. So most of the solutions that organizations and project teams are delivering to their businesses are really good solutions. And the majority of work that change managers do, so the analysis of impacts, training, communications, co-design, the typical change management activities are good at readying organizations for go live events. But what happens beyond that point is actually where the majority of benefit is eroded. The other thing that we've found from research and our own experience is typically maintaining the attention of people leaders within organizations after a go live event is really, really challenging. And most organizations or most projects only maintain the attention of their business leaders, so their managers and supervisors, who are often referred to as the frozen middle, for 6 to 8 weeks post go live. So, what we feel happens for most organizations is that there's this black hole. The project team have typically moved on to building the next solution. The change team have rolled off after doing a good job of readying the organization for the go live event. And you hit this black hole where there's no ongoing engagement of leaders in the organization. And as a result, your supervisor and manager level don't have clarity of how they can continue to support adoption and continue to support the business to achieve the benefit realization targets. The other characteristic of the black hole is most organizations don't track the leading indicators associated with their benefit realization targets. So they've got very little ability to actually identify where there's barriers and when things are going off track. And because of that, they've got a limited ability to actually course correct. And that results in failed benefit realization or delays. So that's the problem. Now, let's talk about the role that change managers can play in solving that problem. And to do that, I'm going to share with you a case study from the oil and gas industry that focuses on a supply chain transformation program. This was a significantly large scale transformation program. It impacted probably around about 400 to 500 employees directly over two major gas plants in the northwest of Western Australia. So just to give you the background and ensure that you have a basic understanding of what happens in the context of oil and gas supply chains, in this particular instance, the maintenance manager in green was the key decision maker. So his role or her role on the plant was to ensure that the plant was reliable and ensure that it continued to run and produce gas. He was the one, or she was the one, that was responsible for ordering additional everything from the paint that goes on to protect from the marine environment, right through to large valves that cost multiple millions of dollars to keep the plant running. And the maintenance superintendents would inform the supply chain directors of what they need to order. That would get shipped to the warehouse. They would hold those supplies in the warehouse. And then once again, the maintenance superintendent would be responsible for making the decision on whether that was transported by either air freight or via road freight to site for the maintenance work to be completed as per the maintenance plan. So in terms of the end game and I guess the benefit realization targets, the first target from this program was to reduce the volume of spares being held. And they felt that they could basically save $15 million straight from a reduction in the spares that are ordered and held within their warehouse. In addition, and as a flow-on effect from that, there was an opportunity to reduce shipping expenditure by an additional $20 million. And also, by reducing the spares that were held for maintenance works, there was a target to reduce the warehouse size and the warehouse operating costs that were going to save about $40 million per year on average. The other tricky thing as part of this transformation is they were leading up to a lease deadline in and around their current warehousing capacity. So we were very much time bound in terms of delivering the outcomes from this program. There was also a further $25 million site transport expenditure reduction or saving, and overall the total program was going to save this organisation about $100 million per year. So there was a huge benefit to be realised across the different components of the supply chain. Now, as part of the change management work, the change team did a hell of a lot of work to understand the impacts across the 400 to 500 employees that were impacted by the changes. And what they were able to do, or that impact assessment, was about 120 line items in total. But what the change managers did in this context is they identified the changes that were critical to achieving the benefit realization target. And that was the first key thing that enabled success in this program. So rather than having a massive amount of change impacts that the business needed to try and implement, they were able to drill down onto 5 key changes that were going to help the organization achieve the benefit realization targets. So they drilled down onto the critical few. Those were basically the system inventory management system implementation that would provide the insights into the volume of spares and what spares should be held in the warehouse based on historical maintenance data and the maintenance planning data. The next two were behavioral type changes. So this would basically, the first one there, the spares replacement ordering guidance from the supply chain manager, that was basically a change in responsibility or decision authority from the maintenance superintendent in green to take direction from the supply chain team on what spares would be held for the maintenance plan and execution. That was a massive change, especially considering that the maintenance superintendent was about 5 to 6 pay grades higher than the supply chain advisors. So there was a significant authority imbalance and a significant change in and a significant comfort level for the maintenance superintendents to let go of that decision authority and hand that over to supply chain. And that was the same for basically the decision authority for site-based transport was handed over to the maintenance planners from the superintendent. And once again, that was a significant consideration for the superintendents. The next of the critical changes was a change from a 30-day maintenance planning cadence to a 90-day maintenance planning cadence. And that facilitated the ability to basically order earlier and reduce the requirement for air freight requests to site. But it required a significant capability development from the maintenance planners. And finally, there was a policy that was put in place where all planned maintenance spares should be delivered via road, unless in the case of an absolute emergency where they would use air freight. So these were identified as the 5 or 6, I should say, key changes that were going to drive the benefit realization targets. And this was the role that the change team played to identify these and link them to the benefit realization targets so that was clear to the leaders of the organization. Now, the interesting thing about all of these changes is, and I've got it there in brackets, is they're intangible or they're not measurable. So the change team, what they did is they went back and they said, how can we measure these to provide leading indicators to the business on whether we're on track to achieve the benefit realization targets? So basically what they did is they tracked adoption of the system that was implemented. They also tracked decisions made against the supply chain guidance and emergency air freight requests. And they tracked the accuracy of planning out of the maintenance planners based on any changes or the volume of changes to the 90-day plans after they were closed. And the financial team tracked the monthly expenditure for transport. So these became the leading indicators from the change work that enabled the business to actually identify whether they were on track or not. So I'm just going to finish with the key learnings and the key takeaways for PMO and project managers around how they can engage their change resources to deliver greater value. So the first question that you should be asking your change team is, have you aligned leaders in your business on the new ways of working that are critical to achieve your benefit realization targets? And you want to ensure that the change team are honing down and not providing the business a huge targets, but actually less is more in that instance. The second key question to ask your change resources is, do our leaders in the business have clarity of how they can support adoption of the new ways of working? So that's about recognizing the critical role that leaders play and ensuring that the change managers are focused on providing that support for leaders. The third key takeaway and learning and question that you can ask your change resources is, how are we measuring adoption of the critical new ways of working, and how are we using those as lead, or how can we use those as lead indicators for our benefit realization targets? The other key learnings is ensuring there's good handover of ownership of the leading indicators to people in the business. So once the project team's rolled off, you need to have ownership within the actual business infrastructure every day to own and track those. And also that leads into providing the business with mechanisms to share post go live results and keep the focus and momentum. So what meetings, what reporting are you going to put in place that enables the business to have the right conversations around tracking those leading indicators so that they can course correct and they can use the data? So I'm going to pause there. That was super quick, 15 minutes. And I might just ask if there's any questions. Or Fatima, do we have time for questions? You're on mute.
Fortunately, we don't, but we're going to send through the questions that have come through to you offline, so you can chase up and follow up those people specifically. So those that have submitted a question, we will share them with Matt after, and you can connect with Matt at LinkedIn as well. Thank you so much, Matt. Been a pleasure. I think a very insightful session, so I appreciate your time.
Yeah, you're welcome. It was super quick. I felt like I was speaking a million miles an hour, but I hope everyone got some value from the session. And look, if you would like to discuss more about the services we offer and our software, please contact me either via email directly or via LinkedIn, and more than happy to answer any general questions and inquiries post the session as well. Thanks for
Amazing.
Thank
you, Matt. Have a good day. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
We'll see you at the next session starting in 1 minute time. So join us and we'll be with you very soon.